So it's Christmas Eve, and we have been coasting through this holiday season since the election, admittedly, though we are very excited to unveil some new plans for the new year. A possible podcast, the interviews kicking back up, more debates, new segments, the live show is coming back. But for now, I do want to monologue a bit about imperialism, Donald Trump, and how MAGA has now walked back pretty much every single one of its values it claimed that it was voting on for this election, which kind of shows that they crafted their values to best match what they hoped the marketing of the campaign represented. And boy, were they wrong, especially on the front of how Trump is anti-war and going to be against the neocon establishment. A lot of this was predicated, of course, off Trump himself touting this, something he uses semantics to exaggerate the strength of the claim while leaving out plenty of context that would kind of disprove him as this anti-war candidate. First off, he was handed numerous ongoing conflicts. It's hard to start a new one when you're handed conflicts happening on 3 or 4 fronts. We were wrapped up heavily in Afghanistan and Iraq with boots on the ground in both areas. We had investments and conflicts happening in Syria. There were battles happening between the Turks and the Kurds that we were involved in, and on the ground fighting between Russia and Ukraine and the Donbass as well. So it's not like the world stood still in peace under Trump. And of these conflicts he was handed, he objectively expanded each one. He also expanded the tensions in the Middle East as well, as we'll get into, but we dropped the largest bomb in Afghanistan history on them under Donald Trump at his direction. Are drone strikes in the area up massively under Trump compared to any of the former presidents, compared to Biden after him especially too? He took aggressive measures and attacks against Iraq and Iran that saw retaliations and upped attacks from them, that saw U.S. troops dying abroad because of this, drone strikes in the area tripling. Trump personally vetoed efforts of us to pull out our involvement in Syria in the midst of them carrying out a genocide against the Yemeni people with the Saudis, and of which he, of course, just wanted to continue enabling. Trump's actions directly also allowed the Turks to aggress on the Kurds, as we chose to pretty much just leave them hanging, and Trump deciding to not retaliate or even stand with Ukraine after Russia occupied Crimea. And yes, the blame for this also falls under Obama, but Trump continuing it directly led to escalations in the region, where people on the right try to pretend that it was like peaceful for 4 years between Russia and Ukraine because Putin was scared of Trump and then started invading the second that Trump left office, or after Kamala went and did that thing or whatever, but he was actively pushing into the Donbass Trump's entire presidency, actively trying to take more area and attacking the Ukrainians. You can even look to Trump's actions in the Middle East. As I said, he moved the U.S. embassy to annex land. He left Palestinians out of the Abraham Accords. These draw direct lines to tensions boiling over in that region, as well with massacres of the March of Return in 2018 being a result of this. But despite these facts, MAGA swore Trump will be anti-imperialism. He was his first term. He will be again. He's anti-war, something that they said that Biden and Democrats are pro-war, pro-imperialism because of strengthening NATO and sending foreign aid. Well, now Trump, beholden by his biggest donor, Muriel Adelson, has appointed multiple neocon war hawks who have called for multiple wars, have called for reinvasions, occupation, putting American troops on the ground in the last decade. Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, Mike Huckabee, Mike Waltz. These are all clear-cut, undeniable war hawks. You can't even argue that. And they're in some of our more consequential foreign policy positions. Secretary of State, UN ambassador, ambassador to Israel, ambassador or national security advisor, And since winning, Trump has talked about countries that he wants to turn into America, taking the Panama Canal, something that would almost definitely start a conflict, seizing Greenland, something that, if with nobody else, would start a conflict with Russia, about buying and controlling Canada, which it's funny that he's talking about taking countries and turning them to America. It's always these predominantly white countries that he's talking about, yet we've controlled Puerto Rico forever now, and Republicans and Trump refuse to consider any talks of making it a state. But it's funny how fast MAGA turned a complete 180 and is now cheering all of this on, going quickly from anti-war to pro-imperialism at the drop of a dime. It's make imperialism great again. Imperialism is cool when Republicans are doing it. Biden strengthening NATO, an alliance that is meant to push back against bigger forces trying to dominate smaller nations. That's imperialism, and it's also bad. But Trump wanting to literally just, buy every country and make it America because, why not? it's just making America great again. Like, why can't any of these people actually hold the principles that they say they do? You know, it sucks because as a leftist, if they did hold these principles, there could be some agreement between us, but they're all just fake about it, which is what frustrates me about Cenk Uygur is he is currently right now trying to be like, oh, look, there's so much agreement between our sides. I'm going to be the guy who builds the bridge. And it's like, Cenk, they're lying. Like, sorry to put you onto this, but they're lying. None of these people are anti-establishment, populist. None of them are any of that. They're not anti-deep state. They just realized that using that as a selling point could attract them voters who typically sit out elections. And now even those voters are willing to throw all of that away and support the candidate who is appointing billionaires, appointing neocon war hawks, is talking about clear-cut doing imperialism. Like, all this is fine now because it's their party. Like, again, this is the party who was just crying, we have to stop meddling in other countries, interviewing abroad, but now they're cheering full stop for us to buy other countries. It's just madness. It's madness.